Welcome to an hour of Healthmade Radio. Healthmade is a community for natural health seekers where we educate people about common health conditions and share extensive research on the most effective natural health treatments and promote legislation that protects our health freedoms. Our core concept belief is in the innate intelligence and healing power of the body, and if properly supported spiritually, emotionally, and nutritionally, it can find its way back to health. Healthmade Radio will bring information from integrative health experts throughout the world. Check us out at healthmade.co. Health is what you make it. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt, and I will be your host. Today's guest is Dr. Mindy Pelz. Dr. Mindy Pelz is a best-selling author, keynote speaker, nutrition, and functional medicine expert who has spent over 2 decades helping thousands of people successfully reclaim their health. She's a recognized leader in the alternative health field and a pioneer in the fasting movement, teaching the principles of fasting lifestyle, diet variation, detox, hormones, and more. Her popular YouTube channel combines the latest science with practical lifestyle tools every person can use to reset their health. She is the host of one of the leading science podcasts, the Resetter podcast, and the author of 3 best-selling books, The Menopause Reset, The Reset Factor, and The Reset Kitchen. Dr. Mindy, thank you so much for chatting with me today. This is something that I know a lot of women out there is needing and craving this kind of information.
Yeah, yes, they are, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity not only to have this discussion with you, but to reach more women, because women are struggling and they're looking for answers, and unfortunately they're not finding it necessarily in their doctor's office. So it's shows like yours that allow women to see that they are powerful, that they do have control over their health. They just need to know how to step into that control.
Exactly, and when you are in that time of your life and when you're dealing with hormones, your brain to be able to function appropriately and be able to gather the appropriate information to help to heal yourself becomes challenging when you have these hormonal ups and downs and there's so much going on in your life. So to be able to access information from one trusted source, so to say, somebody that can guide you through it, hold your hand, it becomes vital.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And you said it so well that with menopause specifically, the symptoms are so challenging, and many of them are in your head as far as your moods and your challenged sleeping and irritability, that it's hard to really distinguish between what is just life and the ups and downs of life and what are my hormones. And that it's hard to separate that out. So I think that was really well said, that we need to be able to help these women understand what is hormones and what is life.
And it's not like you have had an easy journey yourself. I mean, I know one of your mantras you wrote in your book, from pain to purpose. You've had a journey yourself, so you can really relate to women that are going through tough times.
Yeah, my journey totally shocked me, because when I hit 40, I was in the best shape of my life, and that meant really a number on the scale. It meant fitting into my favorite pair of skinny jeans, and it meant eating all day, exercising a whole bunch, taking some supplements, just really like healthy eating. So at 43, when I started not sleeping, when I started getting depressed, when anxiety hit me, when hot flashes kicked in, when I started gaining weight for no reason, my workouts, I didn't crave workouts anymore. It sideswiped me. And so I went looking for answers. I kept trying to use my old tricks, and I was like leaning into exercise more. Maybe I need to eat less carbs, and I was trying to do all the things that worked for me in my 20s and 30s, and nothing was working. So I found myself consulting a friend of mine who is a well-respected OB in our area, and what she said to me just shocked me and sent me on a path to find my own answers. And when I told her my symptoms, she basically confessed to me that she had a practice full of women with these same symptoms, and her exact words were, "My medical textbooks have failed me. I do not know what to do with these women." And the funny part of that story was that she flipped it on me at that point and said, knowing that I was an alternative healthcare practitioner, she was like, "What are you doing in your sphere? Maybe you have the answer for me." And I realized at that point, nobody had the answer, that the answer really laid within our lifestyle, that I had a lifestyle that needed to change once I hit 40, and I hadn't changed this lifestyle, and so the symptoms were bad. And the lifestyle boiled down into 5 key things that I had to do differently in order to meet the changes in my hormones. And
I love what you said. I mean, because we, when we're in 20s, 30s, we have these different tricks. We know that I'm gaining these extra few pounds, and I just do these few steps, and they'll just melt away. And then all of a sudden, all, like you're saying, the old tricks are not working anymore, and you become all baffled and thinking that your body is kind of rebelling against you, which in a way it is, but it's just that the body is changing to something, it's operating from a different space than what you were used to, and that's why you need to kind of shift the way you do things.
Yeah, and that's what the Menopause Reset is all about. I see it as a manual for women as they hit 40. When women get pregnant, the most popular book that women turn to is What to Expect When You're Expecting, and everybody devours that book. Yet that's the only book that I see out there that is helping women through times of hormonal shifts. And so a large part of why I wrote the Menopause Reset was to give women that manual. And the big thing that most women, I was one of these women that we are not taught and we're not aware of, is that after 40, your ovaries are going to start to stop making sex hormones. But they don't do it overnight. It's like a 10-year journey where all of a sudden they make less estrogen, less progesterone, and less testosterone. And 10, 15 years this goes on, but you still have to make those hormones. So what your ovaries do is they hand the job over to another organ, and that organ is your adrenal gland. Well, if you're like how I was in my early 40s, young kids, building my career, my ovaries, my adrenals were shot. They did not have any room to make these sex hormones. And so my sex hormones eventually started to decline quicker than they should in my 40s because of that. So it's a lifestyle shift that needs to happen at 40. And if women shift it, then yes, you can go through menopause fairly gracefully. If you don't shift it, you will end up with these crazy symptoms, and then the only solution we're given is to medicate those symptoms, and not even that is helping us. So it's a really pivotal time in a woman's life, and it can be helped with lifestyle changes.
And so tell me a little bit, adrenals. You mentioned adrenals, that they are the glands that are then taken over when the ovaries are slowing down their production, and you're mentioning that you were pretty much exhausting your adrenals. But what do the adrenals do? What do we do that exhausts these adrenals?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I point out in the Menopause Reset how we have to realize that with every endocrine gland, so an endocrine gland is a gland that makes a hormone, that gland doesn't operate in a silo. That gland has a team of organs that help make it work. And for the adrenal glands, it's what we call the HPA axis, the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenals. And so your brain has to perceive that there is a stress going on. And this is really interesting because you can be sitting in traffic and be listening to your favorite health radio station and loving it, and the traffic isn't bothering you. You could be sitting in that same traffic and you're running late to a meeting and you're super stressed about it and it's irritating you. That same activity, what's happening is the brain is perceiving it as a stressor. And once the brain goes, this is not good, this is a bad situation, what your body thinks is that it's literally being chased by a tiger. It doesn't know the difference between you sitting in traffic and you being on your, being mauled by a tiger or chased by a tiger. So it tells the adrenals we are in danger. And once the adrenals get that signal from the brain, then the adrenals will make epinephrine, norepinephrine, cortisol, stress hormones that are made to make you move and run from the tiger, but you're sitting in traffic, so you're not moving. So all those stress hormones start being stored as fat. They start to waste away muscle. If the more stress hormones you make, less resources you have to make the sex hormones. And so it is that whole cycle. It's everything from your perception to your stress to how many times you've called on those adrenals to make these stress hormones that will really dictate adrenal fatigue.
So it's almost like in preparation then for, and this probably might be good to start even in your 30s, knowing that what the 40 is going to look like is to start to see how can I spare my adrenals, because I know that they are going to take over an additional job in just a little bit. And so what kind of lifestyle changes can I do even at that time? And I know that you address that in your 5 major lifestyle changes that we're going to talk about later on. That is kind of the core concept in your menopause reset. But even just becoming aware of doing like a stress, kind of looking at all the stressors in your life and the inventory of your stressors and see what you can do to minimize that and control that to spare your adrenals.
Yeah, it's so well said. And out of the launch of the book came so many women that reached out to us and said, okay, I'm not at 40 yet, but I hear what you're saying about menopause. Is there a way that I can make my transition through perimenopause and then into menopause and postmenopause? How do I make that transition as smooth as possible? And understanding your stress reaction, that's one of the 5 principles, is what we call rushing woman syndrome, that was coined by Dr. Libby Weaver. She has a popular book called Rushing Woman Syndrome and a TED Talk. And I actually just interviewed her on my podcast. She had some great strategies. And it's our perception of stress day in and day out that is causing the adrenals a challenge. And yes, at 35, if you can get a set of tools to help you not call on your adrenals all the time. If you could go into 40, my goal when I went into 40 was to have the number on the scale look good. If I could do it over again, I would want to go into 40 already with my adrenals strong and a large toolbox to be able to keep stress manageable and not require my adrenals to have to work so hard.
I love it. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Healthmade Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Dr. Mindy Pelz. She is the author of the Menopause Reset. We will be right back. Welcome back to Healthmade Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Dr. Mindy Pelz, and we are chatting about solutions for all the nasty effects when the hormones decline in a female body. We were talking about menopause, and so we're talking about the adrenals and how important that they are, for this reset component. But then you were talking also about like the pituitary and hypothalamus, that there's this communication in between. I mean, are there things that then can interfere with this communication that's taking place? So maybe the signaling from the hypothalamus and pituitary is not taking place appropriately, and that is impacting the individual?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have to remember when you look at the brain that the brain is protected by what we call a blood-brain barrier. And there's a reason for that. It needs to keep out the harmful things, because if your brain's not functioning well, then nothing's going to function well, but then there can't be control and coordination of the body. But there are three parts of the brain that purposely do not have a blood-brain barrier because they have to receive neurochemical information from the body, so there has to be a constant communication. And those three parts are your hypothalamus, pituitary, and pineal gland. So the challenge is that these three parts of the brain are the most susceptible to toxins. And we live in the most toxic time in human history. So everything from the perfume you're wearing to the cleaners you're using to the furniture, the new furniture that just came into your house, to your bed sheets that are off-gassing chemicals, all of these chemicals will start to go up into the hypothalamus and pituitary and start to slow down how the neurons in that area are able to coordinate your endocrine glands. So a lot of, we can teach a woman how to balance her adrenal glands, but along with that, we've got to teach a woman how to make sure that she is not constantly putting these toxins into her body that are slowing down that communication that the hypothalamus and pituitary are able to do. It's a little bit like a clog in your sink. If you've got a ton of chemicals in there, then the hormones can't get in, and the messaging, the hormonal messaging can't get out. And so your glands, your adrenal gland, your thyroid gland, your ovaries are left without proper coordination from the brain.
And in addition to that also, don't a lot of these different chemicals function, have a hormonal-like function so that it creates the confusion?
Yeah, and then you've got that. You've got a lot of estrogen mimickers. We're starting to see the same thing now with testosterone. And what happens is they look like real estrogen, but they aren't. It's not real estrogen, but they will fit in the receptor sites for estrogen. And your body will think that it doesn't have it has the proper amount of estrogen and will slow down your own natural production. But if you have these synthetic estrogens sitting in these receptor sites, they do not act the same as real estrogen. So that's why they call them mimickers. So the brain thinks, I've got plenty of estrogen. I don't need to coordinate more. But the estrogen that you have is not being readily used. So now you've got massive signs of low estrogen. And low estrogen signs are the hot flashes, the mental confusion, the dry skin. A lot of women start noticing the wrinkling really accelerates as they go through menopause. The dry joints, we see a lot of musculoskeletal injuries that show up as estrogen goes down. Mucosal membrane, so dry mouth, dry nose, dry vaginal area. These are all signs of estrogen declining and declining fast.
So it almost sounds like the solution, because usually then when you feel like your hormones are declining, but then if you have all these different toxic, hormonal mimickers that are blocking all the receptor sites, what happens then if that individual then just start to take, like Premarin or take any kind of hormonal substances to try to increase the level of hormones, when in essence they are kind of dealing with all this junk?
Yeah, it's so well said. So when we look at hormones, there are three things you have to be aware of. You have to have the endocrine gland make the hormone, so that takes the coordination from the brain. And this is not just the sex hormones in menopause. This happens with people with thyroid problems a lot. So your endocrine gland has to make the hormone. Your liver and your gut has to break that hormone down so it's in a different form that is usable to the cells. And then the third piece of this is your cells have to be able to use it. So with these estrogen mimickers, I could give you all the HRT, all the bioidenticals that we can conjure up, but you still are going to need to break them down in the liver and the gut, and you're going to be able to have to get them into the cell. And with the estrogen mimickers, what's happening is those receptor sites are blocking the entrance of natural estrogen, and then they will block the entrance of the synthetic estrogen you're taking in HRT or bioidenticals. So it's not as simple as you're low in hormones, let me just throw a hormone at you. we need to be able to say, okay, what's the state of the liver and the gut? Are they able to break that hormone down and metabolize it? And what's the state of your cells? Are your cells able to receive it? There's a lot more to the discussion that is not being talked about.
And also one component that I know you touch upon is you also have the communication between we've talked about the communication between the hypothalamus, pituitary, and then also then with the sex hormones. We talked about the adrenals, but then also about the ovaries. So when you're then flooding the body with other hormones, what happened then with the signaling from the hypothalamus and the pituitary? Does that shift then, or does it continue to try to produce as much?
Yeah, it's another great point. So all of a sudden now you're flooding it from an outside source. And so the hypothalamus pituitary gets the message that there's enough in the bloodstream. It doesn't know that it's not being metabolized and it's not being used. So it shuts its production down even more. And so now you've got yourself a real long-term issue because you have to keep on the medication in order to even be able to get the normal amount. And for some women, the medication's a lifesaver. So this is not bashing medication. This is an opportunity to look beyond and go a little deeper. If I choose to do HRT, if I choose to do a bioidentical, then what can I do to use those temporarily, because the longer you use it, the less the brain is going to know to make it. And then the second is, how can I help the liver? How can I help my gut? How can I help the cells to be able to use it properly? So, yeah, I mean, that's a huge risk that we take with any medication, is that when you provide it as an outside source, the internal intelligence doesn't have to do its job.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that kind of highlights the importance then of not just relying on outside hormones, but then that you really need to do these lifestyle changes to couple that then if you need outside hormones. Like you said, sometimes they are lifesavers, but them by themselves, without these lifestyle changes, can be detrimental and sometimes work against you.
Yeah, absolutely. They should all be temporary. You know, it's the same thing with supplements, that I tell my community that supplements should be a supplement to a really good lifestyle. So you go in with a supplement and then you get off of it. You go in with a medication and then you get off of it. If you're going to go in with do HRT or bioidenticals, a great question is, when do I get off of it? How can I use this temporarily? And the hard part is, if you feel good, you've lost your ability to know if your lifestyle is working for you or not. So I'm 51 now, and people ask me all the time, like, why aren't you doing HRT? Why don't you do bioidenticals? And, you know, with all synthetic medication, I always weigh the benefits and the risks. So for me, HRT is not an option, but bioidenticals has some really good, not as many risks, a lot more benefits. But I don't want to lose my sensor of knowing if my lifestyle is working for me or not working for me. So I feel like we've got allopathic medicine, and we've got a lot of people decide, well, maybe I don't want to be there. I want to be an alternative medicine, so I'd rather take a supplement. But I'm a big fan of lifestyle medicine, where we are looking at using our lifestyle to match what the needs of our body is.
Yeah, I mean, that is the foundation. Then obviously when you need something to create a quicker shift in support of your lifestyle, you can use tools for that. But if you don't have the foundation, then if you're just getting back to square one each time. Well, we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Healthmade Radio. I'm here with Dr. Mindy Pelz. She is the author of the Menopause Reset. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthmade Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Dr. Mindy Pelz, and she's the author of The Menopause Reset, a book that can keep you sane while you're going through the change of life, for all you ladies out there. So in your book, you talk about 5 major lifestyle changes. What are they? Why are they important? And why these compared to everything else that's going on that you can do?
Yeah. So the 5 changes go like this, and I put them in the order of what I think is actually the easiest to change. So the first is that, and this is one that's really catching on, people are starting to understand this more and more, but you are not meant to eat all day. So this idea, eat 6 meals a day will speed up your metabolism. There's no science to back that up. I've looked for it, can't find it. And so we have to reframe when you eat. So step number 1 is to start to look at adopting a fasting lifestyle. I'm a huge fan of intermittent fasting for women, especially menopausal women, because it does 2 things. Once you've taken this 24-hour period of your day and you've decided, here is the window in which I'm going to eat, and here's the window in which I'm going to fast, you start to tap into a different fuel source that you are not getting access to if you're eating all day. And we call it the fat-burning fuel source. It's also known as the ketogenic energy system. But this system is going to make energy for you from fat. Well, that is a godsend for any woman going through menopause because her old tricks for weight loss are not working as well. And then the other piece is as estrogen declines as you move through menopause, you are more prone to insulin resistance. So something as simple as fasting 13 to 15 hours every day is incredible for helping make sure that you are not insulin resistant, that you don't become insulin resistant. It will help bring down inflammation. It'll help regulate your glucose. I mean, there's so many benefits to it. So step number 1 is change when you're eating. And the first step I recommend is intermittent fasting. Step number 2 is look at your food not from a calorie standpoint, but from a macro standpoint. So calorie in, calorie out, we've never been able to master that as a weight loss tool. So what the new research is showing us is that the quality of the food we eat has a strong hormonal effect on us. And there are 3 types of measurements that we can look at, and that is your protein, your carbohydrate, and your fat. When you are looking at a high carbohydrate diet, especially one that is not coming from carbs from your food, when you're getting carbs from cookies, crackers, cakes, breads, pastas, you are constantly spiking your blood sugar. And as your blood sugar goes up, insulin will go up. As insulin goes up, sex hormones go down. So I teach something in the book called Keto Variation, where I show how you can do what we like to look at as feast-famine cycling, where you're using low carb and then you're going high carb according to what your hormonal needs are. The third step is really paying attention to your microbiome. You have what most women don't realize is that they have a whole set of bacteria in their gut that is meant to break estrogen down. And we have a name for it. It's called the estrobolome. And there are about 50 bacteria that make up this part of our microbiome. And if you've ever been on antibiotics, if you've been on birth control for decades, you've most likely destroyed this set of bacteria. And this is what breaks estrogen down. So you can go back and you can start feeding these good little gut bacteria. You feed them polyphenol, probiotic, prebiotic-rich foods. So I always say, you might have been able to get away with not eating a salad at 35, but at 45, you better make sure that every meal has vegetables attached to it, a lot of leafy greens. We also know that a lot of raw nuts and seeds, a lot of good oils, those can also feed these good bacteria. Then the fourth step is looking at your toxic load. And a lot of like what we talked about, now is a time to look at your beauty products, time to look at your household cleaners, time to look at your whole toxic environment. So again, you might have been fine with your favorite perfume at 35, but at 45, it has phthalates in it, and those phthalates are tanking your testosterone, leading to a low libido and causing you to have no motivation for working out. So we've got to look at the toxic barrage that's coming in. And then also toxins, as the hormones dramatically shift, toxins will come dumping out of your bloodstream and they'll go into your brain and start to change the hypothalamus and pituitary. The biggest toxins this does this with are neurotoxins like heavy metals, fluoride. Those are all stored in your tissues, and at menopause, they come out and start to cause more problems with your hormones. And then the fifth step is the rushing woman syndrome. You just can't stress your way through menopause. It just doesn't work like that. You are more vulnerable to stress. You want to keep that cortisol down. I teach in the book something called a hormonal hierarchy, where cortisol will control insulin, insulin will control the sex hormones, but the Mac Daddy of all hormones is oxytocin, and oxytocin can calm cortisol down, which will calm insulin down, which will help you make more sex hormones. So how do you get oxytocin? Hugs, petting your animal, getting out into nature, hanging out with your friends, saying I love you to people. Sex, obviously, is a big one for oxytocin. But anything that is going to make you feel yummy on the inside, saying, they've done research showing that when you thank somebody, when you say I love you to somebody, you're getting the oxytocin hit. So all of these things become pivotal for the menopausal woman.
What a roadmap. That is amazing. We'll take a quick break. You're listening to Healthmade Radio. I'm here with Dr. Mindy Pelz. You need this information. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthmade Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Dr. Mindy Pelz, and she's the author of the Menopause Reset, and she just went through the 5 major lifestyle changes that you need to take in order to be able to sail through this time of your life efficiently. Change when you eat, address what you're eating, repair your microbiome, detox yourself and your life, and stop the rushing. I'm curious, these estrobolome, I don't think that people are really aware of the impact that the gut bacteria has on your hormones. You're only thinking of the gland, and it's a far stretch for people to realize that liver plays a role, but then also your gut bacteria.
Yeah. It's like, why don't we talk about this? This was my whole thing as I went through menopause. There was so much information I was missing to be able to even manage and use my hormones. It was crazy. The thing about our gut bacteria, what most people don't realize is even just in the human body, we are 10 times more bacterial cells than human cells. So again, not to bash on HRT. I know a lot of women are really happy with HRT. I just want to give you a deeper perspective that might help you use your HRT differently. But you've got to realize that it's these gut bacteria that are going to break down the hormones and make them usable. This is the same with thyroid. Anybody's on a thyroid medication. And the challenge that we have is that we've got an antibiotic-rich world. We've got antibiotics in our meat. We've got have been prescribed antibiotics over and over again, and that has destroyed these bacteria. So they're not there for you anymore. They're not there to help break the estrogen down. And this is where, honestly, this is where the crazy making starts, because you're walking to your doctor's office, they're testing your hormones, and they're like, your hormones look like a menopausal woman. There's, really not much you can do, but you feel horrible. And a large part of that is because you're not even utilizing the hormones that your body's naturally making. And a great way to start breaking estrogen down is take amazing care of your gut. Make sure that the 3 categories of foods are polyphenol, probiotic, prebiotic foods. So this is a lot of fibery foods, a lot of seeds. I love seeds to feed those bacteria. Olives are a great way. They're a great polyphenol food. Even red wine, which I'm not telling every menopausal woman to go drink red wine, but if you do like an organic wine, we use a company called Dry Farm Wines. You can find them on our website. That is all organic with wild yeast wine, even dark chocolate. These feed this microbiome that is supporting and breaking down estrogen, and we cannot forget about it, and yet nobody is talking enough about it, I feel.
And polyphenols, remind the audience what that is and where you find that. What is that?
So a polyphenol is a quality or a characteristic of a food, kind of like vitamins and minerals. There is a polyphenol count to certain foods. And you can look at the polyphenols as like food for this bacteria. The way that I always explain it is like you have this little pet that's living inside your gut, and it's going to die if you don't feed it. And so feeding it polyphenol foods is going to help to keep that pet alive. And that pet is going to make all these amazing hormones and neurotransmitters for you. So the typical polyphenol foods, ironically, the highest polyphenol foods are in our spices, cloves being one of the highest polyphenol foods. So here in America, we don't always cook with a lot of spices. So in my family, we've gotten back to doing a ton of turmeric, cinnamon, cardamom, cloves, even black pepper. Those type of spices are going to help with giving you a good polyphenol boost. Olives, oh my gosh, you don't hear people talking about olives very much, but olives are very high in polyphenols. Walnuts, pistachios, when you get them organic, don't get them sprayed with chemicals. Those are going to be high in polyphenols. So they're kind of like the ancillary foods that not everybody is like turning to as a main meal. And it's everything from the spices to the seeds to olives. The more we lean into those, the more you feed those bacteria.
And then in regards to the liver, I mean, so we're correcting the gut, and there's a way to do that, with the polyphenols, prebiotic, probiotic, and but then to work on the liver. I mean, we talked a lot about that, how to detoxify. I mean, so is that mainly through fasting, or are there other tools that you use? I know you talked about like the autophagy fasting, in your diet, in your book.
Yeah, so here's what to know about your liver is outside of your brain, it's the hardest working organ. It is filtering all the toxins that we come in contact with every single day. So you want to be able to give it some support. You want to be able to clean it out. And it also is your number one fat burning organ. So when your blood sugar starts to drop in a fast, what will happen is it'll stimulate to your liver to make ketones. And ketones will go up into the brain, and they'll start to heal neurons in the brain. If you fast long enough, somewhere between 17 hours to even 72, they say, is the peak for autophagy. But somewhere between 17 and 72 hours, when you're fasting for that period, you are stimulating a process throughout your whole body, but especially in your liver, you're stimulating a process called autophagy, where the cells become more efficient. This is how brilliantly designed your body is that in the absence of food, you don't get worse, you get better. And the body is designed because we are programmed to go without food. And think about it from the caveman day. If you were programmed to die without food immediately, we as a human species would have gone into extinction a lot, pretty fast, and we wouldn't be here today. But you have this whole ability for the body to heal in the absence of food, and autophagy is one of them. So a great way to heal the liver is start learning how to fast. And I talk about all the different fasts we recommend to menopausal women in the book. The other thing that we recommend for the liver is some of the obvious, like, too much alcohol consumption, medications like that we know of that are hard on the liver, like acetaminophen, which is Tylenol, has been shown to really be hard on the liver. Too many ongoing medications and toxins in general will stress the liver out. But then there also are little hacks you can do, like coffee enemas, castor oil packs, those kind of things I map out in the book. But the liver needs to also be, I always say, love on your liver as you go through menopause, because it is helping you to not only burn fat, but it's also helping you to break this estrogen down.
And I love in your book, you're talking about, to kind of dip into these kind of biohacking tools where you can utilize these tools that are available to just kind of up your game and to support your body, through very simple tools. That is really, really cool to read through that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love trying to correct everything with lifestyle, but there are some tools that will speed things up. So my new favorite one is hyperbaric oxygen, where you're driving oxygen into these cells, and I call it my Benjamin Button machine, because every time I get in it, I feel like I come out younger. So oxygen's a great one. You need oxygen actually to make progesterone. So progesterone is the calming hormone that menopausal women lose. So our cells' ability to pull oxygen in from the air and from workouts gets diminished as we age. So going into a hyperbaric oxygen can really be beneficial. We have other tools, red light therapy. Women, first year of menopause, women will lose 30% of her collagen, which really is no fun because now you start to look more wrinkly, your skin dries out. Well, red light therapy will help with collagen production in the skin, so that's a great tool. We've got things like a pulsed electromagnetic frequency, which really puts a positive frequency into cells that will power up your cells and make your mitochondria strong again. And as you're aging, those cells are breaking down. Other hacks that I love, chiropractic. If you haven't been to your chiropractor, I run there as fast as you can. One chiropractic adjustment can pull you out of a fight or flight brain and put you into your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that is able to feel hope and possibility and be able to work out goals in your life. So these things are all incredible supplements and hacks to the lifestyle. And again, the lifestyle should keep you healthy, happy, not full of energy, not building disease. And there are times we need to tap into some of these hacks. They don't have any side effects. So why wouldn't we tap into these hacks? And so that we can accelerate healing for our bodies that go through this process.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly what you're saying is that you need the foundation of your lifestyle changes, and then as a topping, adding these biohacking just to kind of intensify the good things you're doing with your lifestyle changes. One thing that many women ask and wonder, so how do I check my hormones? What is the best way to check to see if my hormones are low or high, and how urgently I need to jump into all these lifestyle changes? Obviously, you should always do them, but how bad am I, and how do I check it?
Yeah. So this is massively important. How you check it and why you would want to check it this is life-saving stuff. So remember that hormones they pulse. They're not like all of a sudden a faucet gets turned on and here comes a bunch of hormones. You get pulses of hormones throughout the day. So, and this happens to men as well. Like men get testosterone pulses every couple of hours. Women, we get a pulse of testosterone when we have a cycle during ovulation, and then we don't get it a lot. So when you go to measure these, one blood draw, some urine test, these are not one hair analysis, like things like that are not going to give you an idea of how the hormones are pulsing in and out. So I'm a fan of using the test we recommend is called the Dutch test. And again, you can find it on my website, and we'll do 5 different urine readings. It's an at-home test. So you get 5 different urine readings, and it'll tell us if your adrenals are off, if your sex hormones are in the right balance, if you're making enough melatonin to sleep, how your liver is, how your toxic load. I mean, it's crazy, this test. And it's done with 5 urine tests over a course of about a 12-hour period. So I like that test. When we draw blood, a lot of times what happens is if a woman has a cycle, we don't even look at the day of the cycle that she should be on, whereas with the Dutch test, they have you actually, if you have a cycle, you do it somewhere between day 17 to day 22. If you don't have a cycle, you just jump in and do it. So it's a more thorough evaluation, and then you can see where your hormones are at. The last thing I'll tell you on this Dutch test that has me so excited is that it shows what estrogen is being broken down into. And you have 3 different types of estrogen metabolites. That is the breakdown of estrogen. One of them is helpful and 2 of them are harmful. So I can look at a Dutch test and I can say, okay, you need to eat more plant-based foods. You need to get more flaxseed oil. Your helpful metabolite is low. I can see if you're going to build cancer. I can look and go, okay, looks like your 4-OH, which is the harmful estrogen metabolite, is high. So we need to look at your endocrine disruptors. We need to look at your heavy metals so we can see what's going on there. And then 16-OH will tell us how your liver's doing and your overall toxic load. So there's so much. I actually run this test on myself every year to make sure I'm not building any hormonal cancers and make sure that my lifestyle is working in accordance with my hormones.
Yeah, like you're saying, I mean, this is a life-saving test to kind of see where your hormones are at, and like you're saying, am I flooding my body with toxic estrogen, or my healthy estrogen where it needs to be, and then checking your progesterone, your testosterone, your melatonin, your DHEA, my cortisol level, are they at the are they high at the appropriate time, or are they completely depleted, or and it just gives you such a tremendous picture of where the body's at.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true, and I don't understand why more OBs don't use this test, because what we get a lot in our clinic are people who just randomly walked into the OB's office and they say, okay, well, let's draw your blood and let's see. But we don't know what day of the month that was, and we're missing some big pieces of information like these metabolites and like melatonin. And so it's, really important test.
Well, Dr. Mindy Pelz, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show, and what you're doing is life-saving for women and for marriages.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about that.
No, exactly.
Yes, thank you.
I'm sure that many men, many husbands are in great debt to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you. That is it for today. You're listening to Healthmade Radio. Remember, check us out at healthmade.co. Health is what you make it. Is what you make it. Is what you make it. Is what you make it.